Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith and you're watching another episode of Overbooked, the series where I talk about every single book on my shelves because this is my witchy domain and I will turn you into a pig. Today we are talking about Madeline Miller's Circe. By the way, if you watched my animals video, my office is a little bit haunted at the moment and that door keeps opening, so I can't like prop it from behind. I don't know what to do. But yes, I'm back from my little hiatus. Overbooked is back, and last time we spoke we talked about The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. We're talking about the follow-up Circe today. I bought this book myself. Nobody's paying me to talk about books and all opinions are my own. I'm also going to keep this as spoiler-free as humanly possible. If you want to go in knowing absolutely nothing, click away now, don't watch review videos. I will also link the story graph for this book below so you can check out any content warnings as you need them. This is a Greek mythology reimagining. I don't know if I would call it a retelling exactly, but it does have retelling elements to it, and it originally came out in 2018. Let's take a moment, shall we? A small pause to just judge this book by its cover. It's very beautiful. I have this lovely reflective version, and I mean, gorgeous, gorgeous, and this lovely map. This is actually a signed copy. I think I bought it from Waterstone signed, I believe. I don't quite remember, but I'm going to put it behind me as it's in its naked form. There we go. Just so you can enjoy it as much as I do. If you want to know more about Madeline Miller, you can check out my previous review of Song of Achilles. I believe at the moment she's also working on a Hades and Persephone retelling, which I will be reading, I will be enjoying. People keep coming out with them, and at some point I know it's going to turn and I'm going to be like, there are too many now. There are too many people trying to do Hades and Persephone. But for the moment, I'm just soaking it in. I'm having the best time. The benefit of having the dust jacket off is I can read you the blurb. In the house of Helios, god of the sun and mightiest of the Titans, a daughter is born. But Circe has neither the look nor the voice of divinity and is scorned and rejected by her kin. Increasingly isolated, she turns to mortals for companionship, leading her to discover a power forbidden to the gods, witchcraft. When love drives Circe to cast a dark spell, vengeful Zeus banishes her to the remote island of Iaea. There she learns to harness her occult craft, drawing strength from nature, but she will not always be alone. Many are destined to pass through Circe's place of exile, entwining their fates with hers. The messenger god Hermes, the craftsman Daedalus, a ship bearing a golden fleece, and wily Odysseus on his epic voyage home. There is danger for a solitary woman in this world, and Circe's independence draws the wrath of men and gods alike. To protect what she holds dear, Circe must decide whether she belongs with the deities she is born from or the mortals she has come to love. Breathing life into the ancient world, Madeline Miller weaves an intoxicating tale of gods and heroes, magic and monsters, survival and transformation. My first reason that I think you should read this book is I personally feel the prose is absolutely lovely. Now, if you didn't get on with the prose of Song of Achilles, there's a good chance you won't get along with the prose in Circe either. But for me personally, I think it is just the right balance of like kind of poetical narrative, but without going completely into the, well, you're just doing poetry now and I didn't sign up for this feeling. I think Circe actually feels a little bit less metaphorical to me personally, and I think that's because more of the focus is on bringing in all of these different characters from mythology rather than Song of Achilles, which is telling one story that we already know. However, I just think that the way that Madeline Miller crafts sentences is really well done. It feels really thought out, it feels really intentional without feeling wanky, and that's my bar. If you can do it intentionally without making it wanky, I would like that, please and thank you. I think context is also really important. Like, this is the context of an immortal is talking to us. She has lived for however many years. It makes sense that her speech and her way of thinking would be a little bit archaic. If this was like a YA novel and the text was like this, I'd be like, okay, maybe we dial that back though. I talked about this reimagining, retelling element. Obviously, Circe does show up in the myth of Odysseus. If you haven't read the Odyssey, it is my absolute favourite, one of my favourite stories of all time, the Odyssey. It was one of the earliest stories I grew up with. I know it makes a lot of sense. I find it really satisfying, and I really love all the different ways it has been picked apart and re-put together over the years. I think it's just one of those stories that is so mutable that you can do lots with it, and this is no exception. However, Madeline Miller doesn't just say, oh, I'm going to do the Odyssey because Circe is in the Odyssey and that'll be great. She also goes like, where would this person encounter other characters? And I will confess that I don't know the other myths in this book as well, so I don't know how much it's actually Circe featuring them or if Madeline Miller's adding that in. I think it's probably a bit of both, but it just works really well. Like, it makes sense why all these characters meet up, and it makes sense as to this kind of touchstone in all of their stories being Circe. And she doesn't just exist as a character to go like, oh neat, I love Theseus, I really want to bring him in, great. She is her own character in the story, and the story is fully about her, but you just get these little touchstones of mythology throughout. It works really well. I don't know what to tell you. Again, it's that intentional crafting of a narrative thing. She doesn't just exist as a hub for the rest of the plot. She is the plot. One of the interesting things was that this was a reread for me. I reread this on stream a few weeks ago, and probably a couple of months ago by the time I'm watching this, and I honestly couldn't remember what happened. I remembered that it was about Circe and that it was on an island. Everything else had completely gone from my brain. So that would have been a gap of about 2 years, but I don't think the first time I read it, it really sank in particularly well. Make of that what you will. But one of the things that was really nice about that was I think you really do get to discover where the book is going on its own. So if you already know Greek mythology really, really well, you're not going to be like, well, I know what happens, so why am I bothering reading this? This is just another one of these. It does enough differently that if you know Greek mythology really well, it doesn't feel boring. And if you don't know Greek mythology at all, it just feels like its own story and it makes a lot of sense. I'd say you're probably missing out on some elements if you don't know Greek mythology super well, but I think you'd still enjoy it. And I just found the experience of going through a story not knowing where it was going to go really, really satisfying in this instance, particularly as we get to the end of the book where some characters are introduced that I had no idea about. And they completely drifted away from my mind. So getting towards the end, I was having a really wonderful time. I did cry a bit towards the end. What else is new? In terms of like reasons you might not want to pick this up, or if you've got a particular, I don't want to say turn off, but that might be the right word. If you're a bit burned out on Greek mythology, generally, like I said, there's a lot of Hades and Persephone at the moment. There's a lot of Greek mythology retellings. There's a lot of Greek mythology retellings that are centering women. In theory, a very good thing. Hooray, we like it, yes. In practice, a lot of them are quite miserable. I personally feel like Circe hits the balance well of empowering and also acknowledging patriarchy. I think it does a good thing with combining those two things, more so than other books have done. But you might be a little bit burnt out. You might need to take a break. This might not be the thing for you. If you're already on a no with Greek mythology retellings, don't pick this up. I feel like that's obvious. I feel like that's probably too obvious. But some people really do need to know that. My other mention is that, yeah, it didn't stay with me very well the first time around. And if you're not a person who likes to reread, that might be a no for you. Or it might be a thing where you go into it knowing it's not going to be a book that sticks with you forever. Like I said in my Song of Achilles video, a lot of people talk about this book, perhaps less so than Song of Achilles, but still quite majorly, as though it is the best book that's ever been written. I personally like this more than Song of Achilles because of the topic, and it's just a bit more me. I still don't think it's the best book to have ever been written ever. I should have it tattooed upon my body for the rest of time, you know? So keeping in mind that it might not stick with you for the first time, and it might warrant a reread. That might be a no for you, that might be a yes for you. I actually think it's really nice to have a book that has a lot of rereadability, because if I'm gonna invest in sparkly hardbacks, I would like to pick them up every now and again. And this does feel like a book I would want to reread, but I don't know if 3 years ago, when I was less on rereading, I would have felt as strongly about that as I do now. I think I meant to write, it's not a clone of Song of Achilles, but what I've written is it's not a clone of SOC, which is Six of Crows. It's definitely not a clone of Six of Crows. But no, it's not Song of Achilles done again. There's a lot of similarities between them. Madeline Miller has a style. Obviously, they published it based on the fact that Song of Achilles did so well. It makes sense. It's not that, but again, it's a slightly different book in form and in some ways in tone and in structure. And I think that people who go in being like, well, I just wanted Song of Achilles again, are going to be slightly disappointed by this. However, I actually think that's a really good thing, to get to experience that same wonderful writing, that same great character work, that same kind of feeling of tragedy or injustice that Madeline Miller wrote really well in Song of Achilles in a completely different form. I personally see that as a pro. However, if you're just like, I want that one book again, just read that book again, would be my suggestion. I had a hard time coming up with comparisons for this because, as I've mentioned in previous videos, and indeed in this video, I'm not a huge fan of a lot of the Greek myth retellings that are out there at the moment. However, I did have a few, perhaps potentially a little bit off-the-wall suggestions, one of which we will be talking about fairly soon is Annalee Newitt's Future of Another Timeline. I feel like I liked this for the meshing of empowerment versus acknowledging patriarchy. It's a much darker book, it's a very difficult book, and it's dealing with modern ideas. A lot of the book is focused around trying to reclaim abortion rights and time travel and all of this stuff. So it's very, very different, but I read them close enough together. There's similar themes in there. So if you're interested in books that explore women and women's rights and empowerment and all that stuff, I would actually recommend that. And I will be talking about that in a few weeks. I might be filming that today. We'll see. I also wanted about Daughter of the Moon Goddess, which has the sequel coming out very, very soon. I'm very excited for it. But yeah, this is by Sue Lin Tan, and it's a kind of similar collection of mythological ideas within the framework of a story, but dealing with Chinese mythology, I believe. But I loved the book. I thought it was fantastic. It's fractionally more young adult reading than Circe is, but it's still really, really good, and I would recommend it. And obviously, if you haven't read Song of Achilles and you've been wondering what I've been talking about this whole time, I do recommend it, and I have a video up for that as well. I would say if you're in the mood for the very particular type of tone that this book is, which is quite gentle in a lot of ways, explorative, lyrical without being wanky, mythology retelling, this is a great book to go for. If you're not in the mood for any of those things, hold off until you are. I really think this is the kind of book where you have to be feeling it at the time. And I definitely was, and I definitely will be again. I'm really excited to read this. And it was a great opportunity for me because I had sort of written it off as, I can't remember what happened, it's probably fine. And actually to get to go back in and go, no, this is really good. I am very much enjoying this. This is what I want right now. Was just a great feeling for me and a reminder of why I love doing Overbooked. It's one of my favourite series that I make. Have you read this? Do you have plans to? What are your thoughts? Are we happy to be back post-hiatus? I am very much enjoying seeing you. I haven't actually had the hiatus yet, but I will have done by the time you're watching this, so hopefully all is well and I haven't, fallen off the face of the earth. Fingers crossed. Let me know all of the things down in the comments below. While you're down there commenting, if you haven't already, please do subscribe. It makes me feel loved and appreciated. Thank you so much. Nothing makes me feel more loved and appreciated than my patrons over on Patreon who support the channel and get exclusive access to bonus content and early access to videos. If you would like to join their number, that's linked down below in the description, as well as my Twitter and my Discord, which are both places you can come and have chill chats about books. Right, thank you so much for watching. That's all from me, and I will see you in the next one.
There's gonna be some bloopers now.
Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith, and you're watching another series of my... Because as I've mentioned, I had a hard time... Ugh.